All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being on time. Really appreciate that. Uh, the stone cold silence was just so that we could see you come into the room, and then we can continue to move forward with this discussion. Thank you so much for being here on time. I realize that it's a Thursday, right in the middle of the week, and to many of you who will be watching this eventually after the in a recorded version. Thank you so much for downloading this version as well. Really appreciate that. Uh, First and foremost, I really want to, give you all a huge and warm welcome. We're super excited to have you all here right on time. My name is Prashant, and I'm a member of the Leena marketing function. We really hope you're all having a great month and are fully on track to achieve your monthly, quarterly, annual goals. It is that time of the year where the festivities are about to kick in next month, but everyone's focus is on nailing this month, of course, right? That's the productivity charge. Uh, we're starting today on time, and we'll be ending the interview within 30 to 45 minutes. Uh, we're happy to take questions, and after we get through some questions that we have of our own, while registering, a lot of you have shared questions with us, and that is something that has given us the opportunity to have a rough framework already in place. Right now, if there's anything that you have that you would like to say, you can send a message in the chat box. If you have any questions, you can send those across in the Q&A box as well. I'd be more than happy to take them towards the end of the discussion or the interview, right? But before I do any of that, and before I introduce Danish, who's with us here right now, I also believe it is my duty to tell you a little bit about Leena AI and why we're doing these webinars for HR leaders like all of you. Started in 2018 with a singular vision to be the Siri for the organization. We made giant strides in the last 4 years. Today, we work with close to 300 customers, including organizations like Coca-Cola, Puma, Nestle, OnePlus, Globe Telecom, Al Jazeera, pretty much, the biggest players in the game across the world. Uh, Across these organizations, more than 6 million employees use Leena AI and its virtual assistant for everything from onboarding to offboarding, because we behave as a single point of source for all things HR for employee across the globe. Our virtual assistants are engaging in 10 million plus employee conversations pretty much every day, and we've already managed more than 100 million conversations across the world. Uh, we've also had, we've had the opportunity to actually have some of the biggest investors in the game also showcase their faith in us. We've already raised more than 40 million US dollars with some of the biggest investors in the game. We also firmly believe that our biggest strengths lie in our integration possibilities, whichever HRIS or of your organization might be using at this point of time. We are able to attach on top of them and behave as a layer or a skin, which makes the adoption and everything much more easy. Overall, without taking too much of your time, Leena AI's objective is to help HR teams across the globe become profit centers by saving time and money, and take the employee happiness quotient at their organization to the next level. Right? That's the boring bit that you didn't want to hear, but I had to force you to hear. Now I'll quickly jump into what we're here to talk about. Uh, we today have with us Danish Shaikh, who's a PhD scholar. He's a second generation academician who has chosen the journey of an entrepreneur in the diversity and inclusion space after more than a decade's experience of human resources and organizational development. He's received global accolades like HR Director of the Year, Excellence at HRD Awards Asia 2021, and of course his favorite field, which is DNI OD Leader. He got that award for 2022 as well. But apart from DNI, his global experience comes from diverse, in industries like BFSI, pharma, manufacturing, gaming, fashion retail, edtech, and he's been in roles both in the center of excellence as well as in HR business partnering roles. Right, this gives him the confidence to help businesses and individuals to reach their optimum potential and overcome personal and professional hurdles. Right. I know it might seem like I was reading out from a piece of paper somewhere, but the point is that when you have illustrious folks on the call, you have to ensure that you don't get things wrong. So sometimes that's the best way possible. But at this point, I really want to thank Danish for being here. Danish, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me over. It's been a pleasure interacting with you over the past few days.
Awesome. And from here on, actually, I'm going to take away the slides completely off of your screens, and it's going to be a conversation, which is what you've always shown interest in because you've all seen the previous webinars as well. You have downloaded the recordings. So as a result, you know that everything that we hope to do here is conversational, interactive, and we want to give you as much to take home with you as possible. Right. But now coming to the topic, because this topic is something that's, it's we've currently been in a situation where a lot of practices and processes are being redefined across the world, and at the forefront of a lot of this are the HR teams across the world, right? Because what we've seen post pandemic is organizations have to adjust around around hybrid workplace, 3 days working, 2 days working, 5 days working, permanently working from home, then engagement changes, then onboarding changes, then pretty much everything that had to change has been changing in the last 2 years. And I don't need to tell you that because you guys have been at the forefront of it for your organizations. Now that's why I a lot of feedback that we were getting through our previous webinars was that you wanted to understand, is this a new era? Is this something that we expect to keep changing, or is it something that we can start measuring at this point, and take it to the next level? Which brings me to the topic, which is this a new era in measuring employee engagement? Now, when we talk about employee engagement and organizational development, it is something that is of extreme importance, right? Because once you've got folks into the company, you want to ensure that you're able to give them the best possible experience, keep them with you for the longest time. These are, of course, the staples of any great company, right? uh, but it is our responsibility here to take a more holistic approach. So we'll actually start with even before the person has been onboarded, and before he's started his or her tenure phase at your company. So my first question to Danish around this is actually pre-joining, right? And the question is, simply put, do we, does the process of engagement begin well before we onboard the employees, right? What are some interesting onboarding initiatives that, that help employees in being engaged, right at their early phase in the organization? Anything that, within your experience, you found very, very impressive?
So while the question talks about the onboarding phase, actually engagement starts even before the candidate has
Exactly.
explored your organization.
Yeah.
It's a buyer's market. Any candidate who comes in has at least 4 offers in hand. They know everything about your company. You have to sell the job to them rather than them having to sell their skills to you. So I think engagement starts right from the time you decide to attract talent, right? By simply doing some employer branding initiatives. You start engaging with people who are potential candidates right from the time you decide that, okay, I want to be a dream company to work for, say in 2024. I'll have to start today that this is the roadmap that I need to chart out for the next 24 months, and start engaging with candidates right from now, so that maybe 1 year down the line they apply to a job in your organization. So that, I think, is the first point when you would start creating your engagement. Having said that, throughout, it's been noticed, from the time you release the offer to the time the candidate joins in, there is radio silence. And that is very dangerous, because you will have that radio silence then, and then on the date of joining, the candidate himself will not, or himself or herself will not turn up. Uh, so, there are simple practices wherein, you make the manager give them a couple of calls during that period. We used to send snippets of, what's happening in the company to people. So week on week. So every Monday we would send them a newsletter saying that, okay, this is what is happening in your company. These are some of the awards. This is the who's who of the company, so on and so forth. And then as you gradually get closer, you start giving them more, detailed literature. So maybe you give them something about the values of the organization. You give them something about the competencies of the organization. 1 week prior to joining, you send them the policy on the dress code. You send them a map saying that, this is, if you're planning to come down to office, this is probably the bus stop you may need to come to. This is the closest railway station. So you start engaging them right through their notice period, and keep checking on them. How's it going? How's your last week? Have you had a farewell party? Blah blah blah. Just basic. Uh, in sales also, right? You keep your client warm. Same thing that you do with your candidates as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a business approach to it. I mean, that's something that if it works for a business, it'll definitely work for your, the folks you're recruiting as well. So I think that's a great job. But again, the focus there is on doing the basics right. Keeping that communication open and keeping those channels of communication open.
Right.
In fact, that's what even at Leena AI, whether it is for our onboarding module or anything else, the way that the conversation is always shaped is we lack consistency. Like there's for one person the onboarding looks a bit different, for the second person it sometimes looks a bit different. So throughout all of that, it can lead to a lot of different situations. But I think overall, coming back to the answer that you had given, I the only thing I also wanted to check was, uh, according to you, is the role of the hiring manager, the person who's eventually going to be working with this person who you're about to hire, is that is that larger in importance now?
Absolutely, because people, we of course we know that people don't leave jobs; they leave managers. People also join for managers. Your manager has to be their aspirational person. So, in some of my previous organizations, I've actually gone and redone the social media profiles of all these managers to ensure that the profiles look appealing. We ensure that they put up snippets from time to time. Uh,
That's actually really fresh, because I think a lot of people miss that trick, because if you'll see, a lot of senior folks at companies have very bland profiles because
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. And then, the candidate comes, visits their profile and sees, this person has not been active in the past 1 year. I don't know whether I'll get to learn something from this person. And they'll find it better. And there's
Yeah.
always something, to be very honest.
For sure, for sure. Okay, got it. I think that's a fair point there. Uh, talking about this is actually then after the onboarding phase, or this entire phase, then of course comes the employment tenure. Where the person has joined the organization, and from there on, you want to take things forward. Now, Danish, my question to you is actually: has the pandemic, completely changed how we measure employee engagement? I mean, I understand that a few certain things will remain the same, but have you seen, or in your experience among your peers, industry colleagues, have you seen people getting more innovative, dynamic in how they want to do engagement measurement, and how engaged are the employees?
So, I wouldn't say the way we measure employee engagement has changed. I think the frequency of measuring employee engagement has definitely changed. Because earlier, employee engagement was a process you would probably run it once or twice a year, but now you actually have to have the pulse of the organization every minute. You have to track what people are up to. I mean, not in a detective sense, but more from the point of view of analytics as to how much time is this person spending on social media, or has this person updated their open to work status on LinkedIn, that kind of thing. You have to be vigilant and ensure that you talk to your people from time to time, because that will give you the real pulse of what's happening. An employee engagement survey is, I think, redundant at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Again, so drawing from our own experiences at Leena, one of the most key questions that we always talk about is, by the time we do our usual surveys and the results come out of those surveys, the
True.
results have become redundant, because either some of those people have moved out, or some of those people have been promoted, or something else has happened. So like you mentioned, the frequency is something that is of great importance to organizations now.
True. In fact, in one of my previous organizations, people had developed a predictive model as to, these are the people who are potentially going to be leaving your organization in the next 6 months. And you focus on, I think, you at Leena AI might be able to do something of that sort as well.
Precisely, yeah. I think that's something that we've always wanted to sort of explore with in all our partnerships and collaborations. So yeah, so I think that again brings us to being more innovative in your approaches to collecting the survey answers that you're looking for, even doing that more frequently, getting those answers in, and then creating actionables much faster, right? So yeah, so again, so I think then you had just mentioned right now, right, that you guys had actually come up with ways of understanding that is this person about to quit, and is this about to, is this open position about to come back to me, right? So if you could share with us, what are important red flags, that folks can make a note of when it comes to predicting attrition, But I don't just mean attrition, overall, because there's a certain kind of attrition that's also important for organizations, right? But when it comes to top talent, your premium cream of the crop talent, who, the 20% that's making your company tick, right? What are some key things to sort of be mindful of in terms of red flags?
So, attrition happens, one, of course, at people who are your top talent because everybody is gunning for them. And the other one is your talent which has just come in, right? Your first 90 days are the most critical ones where maximum infant attrition happens. People join in with high hopes. Something does not work for them, and then they just decide to not turn up one day. So I think you need to keep your so for the people who are in the infant attrition stage, you meet them in person. There's no way that you lose out on that personal touch. For people who are your top talent, I think there are few subtle ways in which you would notice. If somebody's suddenly gone too quiet, somebody who was bubbly and cheerful, I'm sure you've heard of quiet quitting, right? Uh, that's become extremely prevalent now. Earlier, while we were in office, you would know somebody's about to quit from their body language. But now you would notice from the fact that people have suddenly just given up. They're happily whiling away their time on LinkedIn and searching for new jobs and trying to move out. One more thing you can notice is that, suddenly if somebody wants to look out, they'll start putting too many posts on LinkedIn, right? Uh, they become very active all of a sudden. Of course, if it's a consistent thing, that that's regular, and if that stops, that's a red flag. But for somebody who's been silent from the past 1 year and suddenly puts up 3 posts a week, that person is looking outside for a job. So these are some small red flags that you definitely need to be mindful of. I don't think in person you would get to know as much as if you just visit somebody's social media profile.
Absolutely. I mean, with us not being at the workplace, around each other constantly, that bit of serendipity is obviously gone out of the way, right? Those water cooler conversations, those, that conversation, that camaraderie, that has gone away. So as a result, it's, in some cases it might be tougher, but like you said, social media could give you, a very big hint as to where the person's mind is at. Great. I think that's fair enough as well.
And typically one person leaves, you need to be watchful of the others in the same team.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're all going through the same context.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think they all have the understanding of the person who's leaving.
Correct. And somebody who's hanging out with somebody who's in their notice period also feels that itch that I want to move out. So if you see somebody hanging out too much with somebody who's in their notice period, that also becomes a red flag, because notice periods these days are aspirational, right? When you see somebody that relaxed at work, and somebody from your team, you also want that.
Absolutely correct. Fair enough. I think my next question is more around trying to understand KPIs and KRAs, right? Have they changed for us, in recent times? I mean, I know the consistent ones will always remain. Those OKRs and all of those things will still be around. But have you seen some kind of a shift when it comes to designing these KPIs and KRAs, or within your peers, or anyone basically who's been having these conversations?
So, in terms of a shift in defining these KRAs, not so much. However, they've become a lot more collaborative now. People want to involve the entire team in the decision making into forming their own KPIs, and that kind of cognitively engages the team member and makes them invested in the organization. That's one thing which is a change. However, in terms of the behavioral indicators which you may measure an employee on, there are things which have got added, like your resilience, your learning agility, and of course your DNI quotient. These are things that are now being focused on a lot more post-pandemic.
Fair enough. I think, like you said, it's a holistic way of looking at designing these KPIs and KRAs, of course. Fair enough. I think the one more question that is always now on people's minds, simply because, so for example, I'm in a permanently work from home role, right? But there are several organizations who are using hybrid models. There are several organizations still sticking to the 5 days a week model as well. And in some industries, I mean, it's not even an option. They have to be at work 5 days a week. So my question to you is workplace flexibility now normal instead of a temporary fix, that it might have looked like, at the peak of its powers in the pandemic, where no one had any option, we had to do it. But do you believe workplace flexibility will now be very closely linked with engaged employees?
I'm not so sure about closely linked, but now it's a prerequisite, right? Because
Exactly.
contact a candidate, the first question that they ask is, what kind of flexibility do I get? Once people have tasted blood, there's no going back from there. And to be fair, a lot of jobs are such that they don't require people to come to work 5 days a week. And now that people know about it, it doesn't make any sense calling somebody to work 5 days a week. In fact, the hybrid policy that we had. Now, earlier people used to say, okay, let's do permanent work from home. But then, that work from home fatigue also set in beyond a point in time. So having that right balance of, how many days you'll work from office, whether you'll work from home or you'll allow remote working, or, there are n number of creative ways in which companies have defined this process, that if you're in, let's say, you want to go to your hometown and we have a regional office there, work from there once a week. Stuff like that is something that people are more than happy to, look at when they are joining an organization. So I wouldn't say that, it's not really the new normal. It's here
It's
to
a
stay.
prerequisite. Yeah, it's the present, and it's the prerequisite for everyone now.
Yeah, and people who don't offer it are the ones who, will somewhere die down somewhere.
Interestingly, I think what you were saying has struck a chord, because I've just got a question that's come in, and it's an interesting question that I'm sure a lot of people deal with. I'm not sure if you actually dealt with this also. So let me read it out for you. Right, it comes from an anonymous attendee. Thank you for your question. You could use your name also. We don't mind that. Right. How can we get the leadership on board for workplace flexibility if they're still keen on 5 day working from the offices?
So, first and foremost, I think it's important to ascertain as to why does the leadership want people to work for 5 days. Like, I'm sure there is a thought process behind it. If it is just plain bureaucracy, then you have to sensitize them rather than work on the policies. Uh, Other than that, if you need to influence your leaders, you do an industry benchmarking, see what your competitors are doing. Look at allied industries. Maybe that particular industry may not have moved forward, but somebody in a similar allied industry may have done something revolutionary. Show those practices, because that is what will attract your talent, or might make people who are planning to attract stay back. If you show them a business result, they will listen to you. If we talk about softer aspects of flexibility or softer aspects of work-life balance, I don't think leaders are interested in that. You show them hardcore numbers that this is the cost of attrition, this is the cost of a new hire, this is the cost of XYZ. You build a business case, show it to them, they'll probably be open to hearing about it.
Exactly. So I think talk business, talk numbers, and you will basically get the outlook, the outcome that you're looking for. And in fact, if you don't have the numbers for it, then you probably shouldn't be pushing it anyway, right? I mean, is that also way of looking at it?
Absolutely.
Right.
If you that it's not working.
Absolutely. I think more importantly, as we've seen also, the leadership has also, across many organizations is tending to become more open to these decisions now as well, because they're seeing, what's happening in the industry, how everyone's competing for the same talent, and what one person's offering and what's an MNC would be offering, a startup would be offering. They would have all of those approaches, right?
Absolutely. And candidates are very woke these days.
Yeah.
They know what they want, and they get exactly what they want.
Exactly. I think now would be a good time to just fire up a poll. And we've been talking about a lot of these aspects, and one of the key things that I did want to talk about, and I'll talk about it immediately after this, is around some technology. Do you believe technology, because with everything that's happening across the world, remote locations, remote offices, it will always be down to technology to link and connect people, right? So are you as an audience, at your organizations, have you guys been looking for ways to automate and improve your HR processes with AI, right? The question is just about to come up on your screen. Are you using automation or AI to improve your HR processes? It's a pretty simple question. I'll give it a few seconds and then we can essentially unravel the answers.
I tried participating and it said panelists are not allowed to participate.
Yeah, I haven't allowed you to participate at this point. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I think as you'll see coming up on your screens very, very shortly, 100% of you are not working on it right now, but you would love to know more, right? So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that sort of tells me that you're on the track towards understanding how automation and technology can take it to the next level in terms of redefining the employee experience. uh the, that is my next and final question would actually be around what happens when the dreaded exit comes, right? When someone's on their way out, is this something that is very important to them, right? Has creating an alumni database been a priority in this age of the great resignation, right? Keeping in mind that you could want them to return one day in future. I mean, it's easier to bring back someone than hire someone with no context of what your organization is, right? So do you believe that has moved up in the priority chain recently at any of your peers organizations, your organizations, wherever?
Absolutely. In fact, now that I've moved into consulting, uh, these alumni are the source of candidates more than your Naukri or your LinkedIn. Uh, you get people who are referred. You get people who have the skill set that you're looking for, right? So, and hiring back somebody who's left, of course, that's like a dream come true. But hardly anyone ever wants to come back. Once they've crossed over to the other side, they want further greener pastures. But if you stay in touch with them, you make their exits memorable, they will actually refer people to you. It's all relationship driven at the end of the day. How you make somebody feel is what will be returned to you. So I think maintaining that contact with your alumni, even after you've moved out of the organization as an HR as well, you can still have that alumni database, right? You keep
Absolutely.
it, they give you references, your life becomes a lot simpler. So that's how I would look at that.
Awesome, awesome. I think at the end of the day, if someone is making your life simpler and it's manageable with something as simple as communication, I think that's definitely worth a shot. And honestly, it's not even something that's a big investment of so
Absolutely.
much. Yeah, I mean, it's just easier it's not impossible to stay in touch these days with so much social media available, right?
And it's easier to stay in touch with somebody you know than somebody you don't know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So candidate would require to build a fresh relationship. Might as well have something you already have, and you'll get, I don't know, 3, 4 leads maybe.
Right. Absolutely. I think great. I think so. Interestingly, I think the 30 minutes have just flown by. We're right on on time to wind this conversation up. I think thank you so much, Danish, for spending time with us for this quick interview that I'm sure will help out everyone who will be downloading and watching this recording everywhere. Any closing comments around engagement in today's modern era of the workplace?
I think it's no longer engagement. To be very honest, it's more about employee experience, right?
Yeah.
We do things again. I draw a parallel to whatever HR does is something that marketing has already been doing. Like in marketing, you have your customer journeys. You have those critical touch points. You do something when somebody enters, and you keep in touch when they make their first sale. Blah blah blah. Similarly, with a candidate, you have these critical touch points in their journey. you have their first day, you have the pre-employment zone, you have the first 30 days, their first promotion, their first goal setting, their first training. You make these moments special, your cumulative employee experience increases.
Absolutely.
And these days you measure your ENPS as well, right? It's not, it's HR is marketing now.
Fair enough. And honestly, as someone who is in marketing and works with HR tech on a daily basis, that fills me with great, with great positivity and confidence as well. But yes, Danish, thank you so much for doing this with us today. It's been a lovely conversation. I hope it was fun for you as well.
Oh, I'm glad to be a part of this initiative.
Okay, and this would be, I'm sure, the first of many, future collaborations that we'll continue to do together. And to you, we'll see you back again next month with another interesting, conversation around something within HR tech, something which will matter to you, something that you deal with on a daily basis as well. Please take care. See you next time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks. See you.